Nedorbiga and Fedorova will get this competition underway. The first dive is going to be a forward 1.5 somersaults. It's a difficulty level of 2. So the first dive coming up of the FINA MVC Diver World Series Women's 3-meter Synchro Springboard. Nice gentle start for Fedorova and Nedorbiga. Always good to get the first one under your belt. 48 points in total. So that's a solid start. Just a gentle little parabolic arc. Gets things up and running. Ilinik and Polyakova up next for Russia. It's a straightforward forward dive with a pike. Get the limbs loosened. Get the timing right. Simple start. Execution not quite in sync. As demonstrated by a 45.6 mark from the judges. 3 elements considered by the judges: the approach, obviously the execution of the dive in the air, arms a little bit skew-if, and then the entry. Well, ideally, you're hardly leaving any kind of a splash. Ilinik and Polyakova, 45.6. As the Americans, Amanda Burke and Deirdre Freeman, get ready. They're going to do an inward dive with a pike. Again, it's a degree of difficulty of 2. As are all the first 2 dives. Applause from the coach. 47.4 on the scoreboard. Good enough for second place, but very early on in the competition. As they look themselves at the replay, they can see that the entry wasn't quite right. Just the calves just catching for Amanda Burke and Deirdre Freeman. Next up will be the Britons Alicia Blagg and Rebecca Gallantry. This is a straightforward forward dive with pike. Springing into the pike, trying to aggressively get it into position early. 49.8 gives them an early lead. That's a nice straightforward start. So Blagg and Gallantry, see how high they get. And then pushing down into the dive. Now the Malaysians, Junyong and Yan Yi. Synchronization, the 9 was marked off, but 3 8.5s. Execution, 2 8s. From Malaysia, straightforward dive with pike. Chinese coach moves, locks on, and applauds. Just get the first one out the way. Make it neat and tidy and safe. 49.8. It's a current share of the lead. Beautifully graceful sport. They look at these replays with religious zeal very often, just to see how many small little improvements can be made as the Mexican Chavez and Sanchez come onto the boards. There's a little bit of correction required on the approach to the dive. A little shake of the head from Chavez and Sanchez. Really is an unforgiving sport. See, they're not quite in sync there. They catch up. It's a 48 score. Solid enough in terms of the execution of the dive. It's the individual performance of the dive that has lost the marks there. So at the moment it's Malaysia and Great Britain sharing 1-2. Inward dive with pike for Canada's Jennifer Abel and Pam Ware. Simple, nicely delivered. 49.8 required to get the lead, and they get a share of the lead, 49.8. 8.5s across the board for synchronization. Feedback after every dive for Jen Abel and Pam Ware. Now we come to the quality of the field. Tania Cagnotto and Francesca Delap, the Italians. Straightforward, forward dive with pike. Plenty of height from the springboard. That was a key feature of that, and that's already marked them out as different class to the rest. A lot of air gives them time, and a 50.4 total. Tanya to the left, and that's Francesca. Never looking happy. Now Shi Ting Mao and Wu Minxia, the current world champions. This is a forward dive with pike. Even on the simple stuff, it's nearly perfect. Plenty of height from the spring. Good coordination. 53.4. The kick of the legs into the pike. It's all more aggressive than all of the other divers that we've seen. Springing out into the finishing position. So China, as is their wont, have the lead after round one of 5 dives. 53.4. Execution 9 and 8.5. Synchronization 9, 9, 9. There's the team to beat. Confirmation of the first round scores coming your way from the cube. Or from underneath the water in the water cube. And it will be the Chinese pairing of Shi and Wu who lead. Canotto and Delap second. And there's a tie for third place. Flag and Gallantry of Great Britain. Junhong and Yan Yi from Malaysia. And the Canadians, Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware. Use of video work, all of the dives, even the practice dives, all being filmed on the iPods and shown to the divers as soon as they come out. Second round, this is Fedorova and Nedobiga. This a backward dive with pike. Good straight legs, kicking up into the hands, pushing the backside back to allow the finish. Nice spring, a 49.2 total to add to their 48. A two-round total of 97.2. Fedorova and Nedobiga not expected to be challenging for the top, but they will be looking to maybe push themselves into a battle for third slot. Milinik and Polyakova, disappointing first dive. This time it's going to be an inward dive with pike. So the preparation of making sure that the springboard is just at the correct springiness. And a total of 48 points. It's a better dive. 93.6 for 2 rounds. Burke and Freeman of the United States will be up next. Store that one into the memory bank and look forward to the third round. Forward dive with pike. Degree of difficulty 2. Nice. Very clean. Need 49.8 to be first, and they've got a 48.5. That's perceived to be a very good dive. Well, actually, a good dive, not a very good dive. So, 96 points, 2-round total. Synchronization, 8, 8.5, 8.5. The British girls, Blag and Gallantry, up next. Joint third coming into this second round dive. It's a reverse with pike. Cheers, but they look to have 1 or 2 problems in the approach there. It's a 48 score. Required a correction in the air. So 97.8 overall score. Enough for the current first ranking, but the big hitters are still to come. This is Junhong and Yan Yi will come up next for Malaysia. Tiny figures. A backward 1.5 somersault with half twist. Yan Yi just looked like she overreached in the entry. 45.6 reflected in that score. Synchronization perceived to be poor as well. An 8.75 and a 7.5. 45.6 for a 95.4 total. Although the bigger scoring dives are still to come, they would have wanted to have been a little bit closer to the top three. As will these girls, Chavez and Sanchez. Way off. It's a nice entry. They never look comfortable going into that. And a 43.8 is the result. An overall 91.8. At the moment, they're trailing at the tail of the field. So Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware, they made a solid start. June 3rd coming into this as we get the execution mark, 7.5, 7.5. Little look of disappointment on the face of Arantxa Chavez. But this is Abel and Ware. Reverse dive. That's nicely executed. .49.8. They've repeated their first round score. And 99.5 moves them into first place at the moment, but the two class acts of this field are about to perform. Cagnotto and Delap. Execution individually, 8. Synchronization, 8.5. Good job, well done by Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware. Cagnotto and Delap. This dive, a reverse dive with pike. Out of the pike into the position to enter the water. Just look at the two top pairs, and they are a class apart. 49.2. Just keeps them in front of Abel and Ware. Individual execution is where the problem was from the judge's perspective. 7.5 in there, that's discounted, but 2 8s. And now, if history's anything to go by, this will be the masterclass. Ting Mao and Wu Minxia Wu closest to the camera. A reverse 1.5 somersault with half twist. They picked up 53.4 points to be comfortable leaders. They've added another 50.4 there. Okay, so all the women have got the cobwebs out of the system. Execution scores of 8.5, synchronization 2 8.5s and an 8. By their standards, they'll be a bit disappointed from that. However, China lead by over 4 points after 2 of the 5 rounds. The Canadian pairing of Abel and Ware ahead of the Italians Cagnotto and Della. Well, level. Third round about to start. Fedorova, Nedoviga. Fedorova's won silver at the European Championships as recently as 2012 in Rostock, 2013 in Rostock in this 3-meter synchro. And a 63.9 to open this third round. The degree of difficulty there increases once we hit this third round. The competition now really starts. Individual executions, what cost them just a little bit there. Ilinica and Polyakova. Back 2.5 somersaults with Pike. Level of difficulty 3.0. Into the Pike. Good applause from the coaches, from the Russians. Pretty young squad the Russians have brought with them to this Super Series event. Was sharing accommodation and breakfast with them this morning, and saying they're trying to pick up thirds and fourths and fifths. They know that they're not going to compete with the Chinese just yet. For Christina and Maria Polyakova, a dive of 63.9. Amanda Burke and Deirdre Freeman, they're up next for the United States. A back 2.5 somersault with Pike. Sounds easy when you say it. .10. That's nicely done. Again, if you're getting 7s across the board, as the girls are, it's solid dives. Plenty of room for improvement, but certainly you're in international class. So for Alicia Blagg and Rebecca Gallantry, inward 2.5 somersault tuck. Using the full spring of the 3-meter springboard there, Alicia. 59.13 though. That's disappointing for them, 156.93 total. That'll drop them down a few marks, and well, it's the synchronization that seems to be the problem, according to the judges. 2 7.5s and an 8 on synchronization execution. Neither girl performing a perfect dive, and coaching team just having a word, as they always do. Yan Yi and Jun Hong. A back 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Plenty of aggression in the pike. Has it done enough to persuade the judges? A 61.2. Synchronization, not bad. The whole clutch of young Malaysians who do an awful lot of their training up here in Beijing. Next up, Chavez and Sanchez, currently bottom of the rankings, which is something of a surprise. Looking for some kind of restoration. Inward 2.5 somersaults with pike. I look better. Certainly plenty of concentration beforehand. They picked up a 68.4. It was better, considerably better. Their best dive by quite some way. The synchronization marks pretty high. 2 8s and a 7.5 will be taken into account. Overall total of 160 will put them back in with a chance of third place. Second overall at the moment, but the 3 leading ladies, 3 leading teams still to come. First up, Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware from Canada. Forward 3.5 somersault with pike. .96. It's been a consistent series of dives by Ware and Abel. Overall 166.56. This is going to be fairly competitive for the second, third, fourth places. Abel and Ware have been consistent. Cagnoto and Delap. A back 2.5 somersault with pike. 66.96 required to go top, but they've only picked up a 63.9. Synchronization, again, perceived to be the problem. So second for now, but they will drop to third at the end of this third round. Unless Shi and Wu really do something inexplicable. This dive an inward 2.5 somersault. Each dive is almost a masterclass from the Chinese girls. Current world champions. A 77.4 dive. A couple of 9s in the synchronization, as you can see. Execution, an 8 and an 8.5. That's really taken them in control of this contest, as we expected it would do. Ranked first, 181.2 points. That dive, 77.4. And the overall standings, as usual, read very nicely for China here in their home. Shi and Wu leading, 14.5 points down. Abel and Wei. Kanyotto has some work to do. And at the tail end, it's very close. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Not much separating them, just a couple of points separating Iliak and Polyakova and the 9th placed Americans. You are watching the FINA NVC Diving World Series. We are in Beijing in the Water Cube, the venue made for the Olympics in 2008. It's a state-of-the-art building. Feedback from the divers is unanimously, wow, this is great. Can we come here every week? Well, they can't, because they go to Dubai next week, in fact, then on to London, Moscow, Windsor in Canada, and Monterrey in Mexico. It's the 4th of 5 rounds about to start. The forward 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Here's the dive for Fedorova and Nedobiga. Judges awarding a 67.5. The degree of difficulty was 3.0. Again, solid across the board. When we look at the individual breakdown of the scores of the synchronization, 3 7.5s taken into account, and the execution, 2 7.5s. Linik and Polyakova. A reverse 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Again, difficulty rating of 3. Great extension into the pike. There was more air off the springboard than we've seen from Polyakova, certainly. 63 seems a meagre reward for that. Coaches are happy. Dive 63, execution 6.5, synchronization 7.5 across the board. As the Americans, Burke and Freeman. Currently bottom of the pile, but you can soon work your way up. It's very congested at the bottom of these rankings. Reverse 2.5 somersaults with Pank. There's plenty to admire on that one. Let's see if the judges admire it. 63.9. They're not overly critical of it, but they're not throwing a party. It's a solid performance. Keeps them in touching distance with the Russians. As we say, congested down the bottom. Execution 7.5 taken into account. Synchronization 7.5, 7.5, 7.5. Sorry for talking over the girls there. Shut up next time. Alicia Black and Rebecca Gallantry. Pike position, backward 2.5 somersault. It's only a 2.7 degree of difficulty, so their execution needs to be very strong. They picked up a 59.4. And the execution was the perceived weakness from the judges. Once you hit the international levels, and any entry that isn't absolutely perpendicular will cost you points as well. Execution, well, there was a 4.5 in there, which is discounted. The synchronization, 6.5, 7 and a 7.5. Currently 8th, Jun Hong and Yan Yi from Malaysia. Reverse 2.5 somersault. They lost the synchronization very early on. It was very low. It was good elevation. I think it was Yan Yi who got the elevation. But when we look at the replay, 59.4. Synchronization is good. There's too much of a differential there, too much to make up. They'll lose a bit of ground there, the Malaysian girls. .5 was discounted, so it's a 6 and a 7.5. As we move on to the Mexicans, Chavez and Sanchez. Currently 5th ranked. They made a bit of recovery. They were bottom of the pile after round 2. That's nice. They put that second round difficulty behind them. Produced a couple of very nice dives. 69.3. Best mark of this 4th round so far. The degree of difficulty was 3. done themselves a big favour there, have Chavez and Sanchez. Synchronization good, 3/8. So a bit of pressure on Jennifer Ware and Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware, currently ranked second. And may well hold on to second with that. A backward 2.5 somersaults in the pike position. Again, there's a nice little look. Yeah, 68.4. 8s across the board for synchronization and 7s for execution. Currently ranked first. Means likely to be ranked third going into the final round, because next up on board we have the Italians Tania Cagnotto and Francesca Della. A forward 2.5 somersault with 1 twist. Needed to be a little bit of correction after the spring. 65.7. Where did it go wrong? That's the forward momentum. Individually solid dives. Synchronization 7.5s across the board once again. 229.2 total. Well, they've lost a little bit of ground in the last couple of dives of Cagnotto and Delap. Ting Mao to the right of camera. Mincia with a shorter hair. Again, rapturous applause. Not so much from the coaches, though. Tough taskmasters. The scores coming in. Slow to come in. It's a 72. It is the best score of the round. 7.5 and 2/8 for synchronization. And, well, best part of a 19-point lead for China from the Canadians. Coaching staff not thrilled with that from the world champions, as we have now had 4 rounds and Xian Wu lead, 18.24 points clear of the Canadians. Down at the bottom, Malaysia's Jun Hong and Yan Yi, and Great Britain's Alicia Blagg and Rebecca Gallantry. It's very close down there. There's still a chance for those bottom 4 positions to change quite radically. One more round of dives to come. This the women's 3-meter synchro springboard. We're in Beijing for the first round of the 6-round Super Series season. That's a great shot there of the spring. It's called the springboard for a reason. That gives you an idea of the height, 3 meters. Last round of dives. Fedorova and Nedobiga from Ukraine, currently in 5th place. This a reverse 2.5 somersault. Nice and aggressive into the pike position. Very often you get a little glimpse of what the girls feel as they just come out of the pool. Plenty of aggression. It's a score of 63. Overall, 291.6. Ilinik and Polyakova. They need a score of 71.1 to leapfrog Fedorova and Nedobiga. Forward 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. That could be good enough. It's a 70.2. It's just short of what they needed. But by far their best dive of this competition. It was aggressive, it was coordinated. They look like they mean it. Synchronization, 8s across the board. That's a very, very good response from Ilinik and Polyakova. That was the Britons' Black and Gallantry just getting ready. First, though, we'll see Amanda Burke and Deirdre Freeman. Currently 7th. This is a forward 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Difficulty ranking of 3. Entry to the water. Wasn't as clean perhaps as it might have been. A 62.10 supports that theory. And synchronization issues as well. Yeah, not issues, it's solid. Having to work very hard to get into the final entry position. Good coaching, plenty more time, plenty more dives working this weekend. This is Alicia Blagg and Rebecca Gallantry, currently ranked 8th. They started well, they've fallen off in the last couple of dives. A forward 2.5 somersault with 1 twist, same dives as we just saw from the Americans. Executed a little bit better than the Americans. Is it enough, though, to elevate them? A 68.4. And it means that the Malaysians up next, Yan Yi and Jun Hong, have got a really tough task. Synchronization good, 7.5, 7.5 and 8. Execution solid, 7.5. Now these girls spend a chunk of their time training up here in Beijing. And chance to see if this can actually benefit them. This kind of pressure situation, exactly what the Super Series is designed to do. This will improve the girls. The dive was an inward 2.5 somersault in the pike position. It's a 66.6. It's very nicely carried out, but not enough for them to get past the Great Britain pair of Alicia Black and Gallantry. They finish on a total of 282.6 after round 4, after round 5. Currently ranked 4th, with 4 more teams still to go, including the improved Mexicans, Arantxa Chavez and Laura Sanchez. Is that enough to get them into the top 3? 66.6. Very similar dive to the one the Malaysians had. They had issues on the approach. The entry is good. They've got to wait and see if that's any good for a top 3 slot. The pair most likely to deprive them are these two, Jennifer Abel and Pam Ware, currently in 2nd. Forward 2.5 somersault, 1 twist. Popular dive in this 5th round. Nicely delivered. Very often the coaches are more anxious than the divers themselves. Good score, 70.2. That's a place on the podium. Probably good enough for 2nd. Synchronization marks of 8 across the board for Ware and Abel. Execution 7.5. Job well done. Unless these two have got something exceptional in their locker. Tania Cagnotto, Francesca Dell'Acqua from Italy. An inward 2.5 somersault in pike position. They need to take the lead 75.96. Needs to be an exceptional dive. Well, they were a long time getting set. Did that preparation help them? 66.6, no, is the answer. An overall total of 295. They may not even find themselves on the podium, the Italians. Out of the money. Decent crowd on hand here at the Water Cube in Beijing, part of the Olympic complex, to see what they assume will be Shi Tingmao and Wu Minxia picking up gold in this 3-meter springboard synchro. It's a backward 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Again, beautifully executed. Current world champs are going to take the victory here in this Super Series event. A little bow to the audience, justified. It's a total of 77.4. 330.6. They've won this one by 25 plus points. Nice tight tuck, clean entry. Aggressive on the springboard. And it's another gold for China. The final standings, Ting Mao and Min Xia win it, 25 points clear of Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware. The Mexicans taking the third place. Amanda Burke and Deirdre Freeman, the Americans, just 0.3 behind Jun Hong and Yan Yi for Malaysia, who themselves were just 2 points behind Alicia Black. Very competitive down at the tail end of this field, but no doubt in the winner. It is the Chinese pairing of Shi Ting Mao and Wu Min Xia.
The medals will be presented by Chairman of FINA TDC. 为运动员颁发奖牌的是国际泳联跳水技术委员会主席 Ms. Kathy Seaman, accompanied by General Manager of Beijing National Aquatic Center Company.
The prize givers Kathy Seaman and Yang Chi-yong.
北京国家游泳中心有限责任公司总经理杨启勇先生。 Bronze medalists， 铜牌获得者是来自墨西哥的运动员 Aranza Chavez and Laura Sanchez from Mexico.
The bronze medalists, Mexicans did well, consistent diving. At one stage early on in the competition, they were trailing. They were actually bottom of the pile and consistently worked their way up with improved diving. Degree of difficulty important in their improved scoring as well. And from last at the end of round 1, made it all the way up to third by the end of round 5. Good performance.
Super medalists， 银牌获得者是来自加拿大的运动员 Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware from Canada.
Similarly, an impressive performance by the Canadians. Jennifer Abel and Pamela Ware. Always there or thereabouts in terms of the rankings. Consistent rather than spectacular. But good enough for silver medal on this occasion in the first Super Series world event of the season. .516 the total points, but 25 points ahead of that. The Chinese pair of Shi Tiangmao and Wu Minxia. There's a reason why they're world champions. Round dive scores of 53.4, 50.4, 77.4, 72, 77.4. High quality and consistent with that quality. Third event of the day, third Chinese gold medal.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of People's Republic of China. 女士们、先生们，请起立，奏中华人民共和国国歌。Ladies and gentlemen,
A familiar anthem to anyone in the swimming fraternity and also the diving fraternity. In this men's 3-meter synchro springboard final, teams from Ukraine, Malaysia, United States, Germany, Mexico, Russia and China. Kushkavazaz and Kvasha step up first. No matter how many times you do it, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. The favourites will be Kao Yan and Lin Yu. It's the Ukrainians to get us underway. This a forward 1.5 somersault with pike. Very nicely delivered. A quick look back at the scores. 49.8. That's a very solid start. Individual performance, 8. And across the board for synchronization, 8.5. In terms of ranking, that's close to excellent. Kushkavazaz and Kvasha just go in for the plunge pool. Good job, well done. Immediately puts pressure on the Malaysian pairing of Ahmad Azman and Wu Liang. Azman closest to the camera. Young lads, part of the team who are spending a lot of time in Beijing. This will be an inward dive with tuck.
Ready? Go.
Lang, the team leader, and plenty of elevation off the 3-meter springboard. Nice relaxed dive. Good way to get them up and running. It's a 49.8. That'll give them a nice little start. One of the synchronized judge actually thought it was worth a 9. That will be deleted the best and worst scores from the individual scorers and the synchronized scorers. Deleted. A little punch. Was that a punch of enthusiasm? From the United States, David Boudia and Troy Dumais. A back dive with pike. Again, a nice, gentle introduction. Gentle to these fellas. Take care if you try it at home. Touching of the toes, kicking out. .49, the score to beat in this early stage, and they've done exactly that. 52.2. Very nicely executed by Boudia and Dumais. Happy enough with that. Little fist pump.
Good. Time was good. Just hair over.
And the coach happy as well. That was good, he says. Stefan Feck and Patrick Husting. Husting's already appeared today and won a silver in the 10-meter platform. This a straightforward back dive. Again, touch to the toes, kick off. Nice gentle arc into the water. Good clean entry. 52.8. Clean, disciplined dive from the Germans, Feck and Hausting. Nines across the board for synchronization, fully deserved. And 8.5, 2 8.5s for execution will count. It's a good start to the competition. All four pairs have got into it so far. Pacheco and Jair Ocampo are the Mexicans. Again, back dive with pike. Same as we saw from the German and American teams.
¿Listo? Uno, dos.
And good aggression in the movement. It's 49.2, the synchronization perceived to be just a little bit awry for the Mexican pairing of Ocampo and Pacheco. And this is Kuznetsov and Zakharov coming up next. Just waiting for the sign to go. Ilya Zakharov nearest the camera, shaven-headed. Kuznetsov with the number 1. Very deliberate movements. They look so simple when performed by the top divers. A 52.8 puts them into a share of the lead. 3 deliberate movements. Once you're in the air, the pike is in, you touch the toes, you spread the arms back, you push the arms down. Synchronization perfect. Well, not perfect, 10's perfect, but very good. 999. And now the local heroes. This a forward dive with pike. .8 is the target to take the lead. They seem happy, but it's a 51.6. We may well have a competition here. So at the end of the first round, Germany lead, Russia second, United States third, China fourth on 51.6, and then Malaysia on 49.8, Ukraine and Mexico very congested. Executions 9, it's the synchronization that's let them down, and arms on the hips from Cao Yan. Not used to seeing themselves in 4th place, the Chinese. But indeed they are. It's very tight, very congested, and we're in the early stages of 6 rounds of diving. At the FINA NVC Diving World Series, the season opener in Beijing. Round 2 of 6 for the men. Goes Kofazaz and Gvasha. It's a back dive. Degree of difficulty still just 2.0. Again, those 3 very deliberate movements. Once you're airborne, toes, shoulders, arms. And a 52.8. Synchronization very strong. 9s across the board, total of 102.6. Right, what have Ahmed Azman and Ceylon got in response? A back dive with tuck. Solid start, 49.8. Very respectable first round dive. Liang is the team leader.
Up. Ready, go.
Synchronization looked very good. Was there enough in it to impress the judges? 49.2. For a combined total of 99 in this first 2 rounds. Synchronization was perceived to be very good, 8.5s across the board. It's the individual dive execution that's received a little bit of a negative feedback, a 7.5 and an 8. David Boudia and Troy Dumais. Inward dive with tuck.
Ready? Yep. Up. Ready? Yep. 1, 2, 3.
Deliberate extension of the legs once in the air. Just look at the kick out. Bang, 52.2. Consistent scoring from the Americans. 104.4 their 2-round combined total. Two 9s and an 8.5. Rates is very, very good in the judging. Stefan Feck and Patrick Housting up next. Forward dive with Pike. Barely a tremor as the water as they entered. And a 52.2. No problem with the synchronization. The 3 marks that are taken into account, all 9s, which are very good. One 8 on the execution and one 8.5. It's okay, he says. Ocampo and Pacheco. Reverse dive in the pike position.
1, 2.
The Mexican team very deliberate in their actions, clearly trying to impress the judges with the solidity of their movement. That's a 51, so it's a slight improvement. They'll have leapfrogged the Malaysians into 6th place with that at the end of this round, assuming Kuznetsov and Zakharov and Yan and Yu don't have a failed dive of any description. Here is the Russian duo, Ilya Zakharov and Evgeny Kuznetsov. Forward 1.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Very graceful. But marked down. That's a good to very good mark from the judges, but that is marking them down. A total of 100.8. And the Chinese 4th after the first round. This a back dive. That's better. .52.8. It's joint best score of the second round. 104.4 will move them up the leaderboard into joint second. And it's now that the competition really begins. You've got the stretching, the routine out of the way. Joint second in the rank. Synchronization was spot on there. Marks of 9. So overall, the Chinese team move up to equal second from 4th. Ukrainians drop from from 1st to 4th. Feckenhausting leading the way. And the Mexicans, Ocampo and Pacheco, leapfrog Ahmed Azman and Oi Tsieliang. Now we get on to the serious business. Into the third round, and the level of the dives goes up quite a notch. For Gorshkovazaz and Kvasha, an inward 3.5 somersault with tuck. Difficulty rating 3.4. Well, the entry was lovely. It's got applause all around the arena. And it's picked up 81.6 points. I said the competition starts in the third round, and the Ukrainian team have really made a big statement there. Same dive from Ahmed Azman and Wu Liang from Malaysia.
Ready? Go.
The execution not as clean as we just saw from the Ukrainians. And represented in the score of 63.24. Synchronization, 2 6.5s. Individual execution is what really hurt on there. There was a 4.5 and a 6.5 wiped out, so 5.5 from the two judges, Podium and Troy Dumais. They've taken a gamble by only going for a 3.1 difficulty, the forward 3.5 somersault with Pike.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, go.
Needed a good execution. Barely a ripple in the water from the entry. Always a good sign. The approach was confident. The elevation was high. And they've got a consistent 74.4 out of that. A total at the moment of 178.80. German pairing up next. There's plenty of twisting coming in this one. A reverse 2.5 somersault with 1.5 twists. Really well delivered. Difficulty level 3.3. They picked up a 77.22 mark from the judges. Generally very good. The execution individually, 7.5s. In terms of synchronization, 8s from the three judges who count. Catching up with them eventually as the Russians in the background just prepare for their dive. Next up, though, will be the Mexican pairing of Jair Ocampo and Rommel Pacheco. Forward 2.5 somersault with 2 twists.
Uno, dos.
.73.44. Judges not overly impressed with the synchronization between the two divers there. 173.64 total. Now we're beginning to see just a little bit of separation. We expected Fake and Hausding to be there or thereabouts. We certainly expect these two Russians, Kuznetsov and Zakharov, to be there or thereabouts. 3.4 difficulty rating, inward 3.5 somersault in the tuck position. Nice, very nice. There's a good aura about these two. 88.74. Outstanding dive. Synchronization, 9s from the 3 judges who count. In fact, 9s from all 5 judges. Individual execution, an 8 and an 8.5. 88.74. Really good job from Kuznetsov and Zakharov. So the gauntlet laid down. This the last dive of the 3rd round, midpoint of the competition. Same dive. Excellent response. Is it an 88.74 dive, though? It's an 86.7. It's not far off it. This competition just got very tasty. And the Chinese pairing of Cao Yan and Lin Yu have just taken over 1st position. It's taken them 3 rounds to get there. But now we've got a real competition. The Chinese Cao Yan and Lin Yu, Kuznetsov and Zakharov just 1.56 down. And thereafter, it'll be pretty tight between the Ukrainian, German and American and Mexican teams for 2nd. The Malaysian pairing of Ahmad Azman and Ute Liang need to produce something pretty special in the next couple of rounds if they're to get up that leaderboard. Right, into the 3rd round. Degree of difficulty goes up. This is Kofazaz and Kvasha. And this dive is going to be reverse 3.5 somersaults in the tuck position. Very difficult. You look at the diagram top left of your screen. Even animated, it looks difficult. Nicely delivered. Slightly overcooked the entry, but otherwise very good consistent dive. 82.95 is the score. It's the fine margins between being excellent and just being very good. Ahmad Azman and Xie Liang. A reverse 3.5 somersault in tuck.
Ready? Go.
It's arguably their best dive. Deliberate approach. Plenty of spring off the 3-meter board. First looked to be decent. Synchronization, they picked up a 74.55. Overall total of 236.79. They won't move them out of last place unless there are disasters. I keep having to put that rider in. You make such assumptions about the quality and consistency of the top-class divers. You do forget that you can get no dives and you can get failed dives. Synchronization 7, 7.5 and 8. Execution 6.5. David Podium and Troy Dumais. A reverse 1.5 somersaults with 3.5 twists, 3.5 degree of difficulty.
Yeah. 1,
77.7, which translates into solid job. Entry not bad, approach not bad, synchronization, there's the angle to watch it. A little bit all right.
you got to move. I was moving.
Currently second ranked, but 4 pairs still to dive. Starting with the Germans of Feck and Hausting, who were leading going into the 3rd round. Inward 3.5 somersault. They need an 84.93 to be first. That's doubtful to happen. 73.44. Having a look at the individual execution of, I think it's Stefan Feck who's picked up the lower marks, 2 6s. Drops them down the pecking order as well. The Americans will leapfrog them as Ocampo and Pacheco. Chance to make some ground up on the pairings above them. An inward 3.5 somersaults with tuck. Same dive we've just seen from the German pairing, Feck and Hausting. Slight pause. Just trying to get some feedback on what the delay. Now they've been called to make the dive. Will that have affected their concentration? Ocampo Pacheco. Inward 3.5 somersault.
¿Listo? 1, 2.
clean entry. Applause from the opposition coaches as well. 79.56. Now Kuznetsov and Zakharov upping the ante. They've been very aggressive in their degree of difficulty. You have the Russian pairing. This backward 3.5 somersaults with tuck. 3.6 degree of difficulty. Well, they're looking at their coach for approval, and the approval will come in another big score. 87.48. They're racking up some big points, and they're really going neck and neck with Cao Yuan and Lin Yu. Again, they put down a marker. It's an excellent series of dives. I mean, we know they're world class. They're proving it, particularly in Beijing. There's a different kettle of fish. Now then, Cao Yuan and Lin Yu currently have the lead. Need an 85.92 to keep that lead. Okay, that's how you do it. A reverse 1.5 somersault with 3.5 twists. Current points leaders. As we have a look at the replay. It's an 82.95. And the Russians have leapfrogged the Chinese to take the lead. Well, a real competition. 4 rounds. Where was the problem? Well, it's not really a problem. It's just a matter of degrees of excellence. So Kuznetsov and Zakharov lead by 2.97 over Cao Yuan and Yulin. Very congested in the battle for 4th. Kovazaz and Kvasha currently in 3rd. But there's some high degree of difficulty dives coming up. Kovashka and Kovazaz and Kvasha have got a 3.8, as have Asman and Seilang. So some big points up for grabs, but high-risk strategy from both these first 2 teams. 4 rounds completed out of 6. This is the 3rd event of 8 in the FINA NVC Diving World Series Beijing event. The athletes then move on to Dubai to compete next week. 5th round. It's synchronized finals day today, Friday. We move on to the individual events on Saturday and Sunday. 3-meter springboard Saturday, 10-meter platform on Sunday. Four and a half somersaults. In the tuck, you get into that tuck just as quickly as you possibly can. Aggressive on the board. It's a 91.2 score.
实得分91.20。
High risk. But if you can execute it and finish it like that, the risk becomes worth it. Now then, similar kind of strategy from Azman and Jie Liang. Can they also produce?
奥斯联马来西亚109C。
4.5 somersaults. Forward dive in the tuck position.
Okay. Ready? Go.
No, Azman couldn't complete the dive. He's not hit the water square. And his face tells you everything about it. The approach always looked a little bit tentative, and a score of 54.72. High risk strategy doesn't come off for the Malaysians on this occasion. Synchronization not there. Neither of the divers is getting good marks from the judges for their execution. And that's frustrating for Jie Liang and Azman. Podium and Dumais. Reverse 3.5 somersault.
Yep.
It's an 81.9. With a degree of difficulty, this is a 3.5. The opportunity to rack up the points is increased.
The board a little bit.
You did? No. I don't know if you got locked out.
Stefan Feck and Patrick Housting. Same dive. Reverse 3.5 somersault. Nice. From the approach, the spring, the synchronization, and the entry, it's an 87.15 score. And that's given them an advantage in the race for fourth place. Very competitive between three of the pairings in the race for fourth, and suddenly the Germans looking good. Been an inconsistent series of dives by the Germans, must be said. And similarly for the Mexicans. And the low difficulty rate, low comparatively, a 3.3. Reverse 2.5 somersault, 1.5 twist for Ocampo and Pacheco. Execution needs to be flawless.
1, 2.
Not sure if flawless is the word. Again, solid, consistent. 8s across the board for synchronization. 79.2. The bad news for them is they actually lose a little bit of ground because of the high-risk strategy of the Ukrainians has catapulted them way ahead. So Campo and Pacheco, 332.4. With 2 divers to go. Kuznetsov and Zakharov, again, taking a bit of a risk. Reverse 3.5 somersaults with tuck. And again, it looks like they pulled it off. Another 88 score. Their last 3 rounds, 88.74, 87.48. This is an 88.2. They're up to 365 points overall. It's a really good series of dives by Kuznetsov and Zakharov. And they've been aggressive, confident, hit the marks. Same dive from Cao Yan and Lin Yu. Real pace on the tuck. 89.24. It's not enough to go into the lead. But it's slightly better than the Russians put together, but it means we're coming into the final round and the Russians, Kuznetsov and Zakharov, hold the narrowest of leads. Just 2 points over the Chinese pairing. And even the Ukrainians aren't far out of this. Such was the impact of their high-risk maneuver. What I can tell you is in the final round, Kuznetsov and Zakharov, who lead the way, they have gone for a 3.8 degree of difficulty dive. So, again, high-risk strategy. But they've been aggressive. Can they claim the scalp of Cao Yan and Lin Yu in their own water cube? Good competition, and it's the Russians who've really taken the bull by the horns, and to be fair, so did the Ukrainians in that last round. And it's the Ukrainians, Goshkofazaz and Gvasha, who'll get us underway. Forward 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists. Level of difficulty 3.4. There's the nervous looking coach. Oh, it's not come off. Anxious look at the scoreboards. That's always a bit of a giveaway. 67.32. 425.67. Slightly overcooking the entry. And it's not shocking, it's just the execution is perceived to be good, not very good or excellent. Synchronization similar. Little shake of the head from Kvasha. So Ahmad Azman Liang looking for respectability.
Go.
That's better. Had a bit of a nightmare in the last round, and still work to be done, but at this level of competition, the Super Series is often about getting experience, diving consistently under pressure. 75.48, it's a good response from the lads. It won't improve their position, currently ranked second, but they will finish last. But it's a good recovery, that sixth dive. Podium and Dumais. Forward 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists. Nicely executed. It was the same dive we've just seen Asman and Xie Liang do, and Gush Kofazaz and Vasha. And they've been rewarded with the best points tally of the lot, 79.56. Well delivered all round. It won't get them a place on the podium, though.
Time to get?
Stefan Feck and Patrick Hausting from Germany. Same dive again. 2.5 somersaults, 2 twists. Didn't look to be the cleanest of entries into the water. Again, you can always tell an anxious look back at the scoreboard when they know it's a really good job well done. It's a 77.52. Which is just enough to put them ahead of the American team. Not enough to catch up the Ukrainians. Rank 2 at the moment for Feck and Hausting. Forward 4.5 somersaults. High risk.
1, 2.
Have they done it? Or is there too much of a splash there? Four and a half somersaults. It's all about getting the spins in the tuck tight enough and then completing the dive, and just doesn't get into the dive position. It's a 77.52. It's the dive execution that's the problem. The synchronization, solid. Dive execution of 5.5 and a 6.5 hurts them. Ocampo and Pacheco, the Mexicans. Now then, the big two. Kuznetsov and Zakharov. They're looking for that same forward 4.5 somersaults. Nail this, and they'll have the scalps of the Chinese Cao Yan and Lin Yu. dive. Current leaders by a couple of points. They've added 90.6 there. The marker has been laid. It's the sixth in an excellent sequence of dives by the Russians. A 3.8 degree of difficulty, tight into the tuck and out in time for the entry. It's not perfect, it's so difficult to do that. But 90.1 for the dive, the degree of difficulty helps you. Now then, what can Cao Yan and Lin Yu do this? They need 92. 92 points to win this. Hey, they made a damn good effort. Oh, there's a little intake of breath from the Russians. 92 required from Cao Yan and Lin Yu. Oh, it's 86.7. They've fallen short. And the Russians, Kuznetsov and Zakharov, have taken a major scalp. The entry wasn't flush. And so, for China, the rarity of not picking up gold in a Super Series event. It's silver. Kuznetsov and Zakharov, 455.28 after their 6 dives. 9 pairs. 2 outstanding pairs in Kuznetsov and Zakharov and Cao Yan and Lin Yu, and it was really down to the very last dive before the Russians were able to secure their place on the podium and the $5,000 top prize.
Beijing 国家游泳中心有限责任公司总经理杨启勇先生。Accompanied by Vice General Manager of International Sports Company. 与他一起为运动员颁奖。
Guests of honor.
北京十国国际体育。
Yang Qiyong, General Manager of the Beijing National Aquatic Centre, and Chen Lei, the Vice General Manager of International Sports Company Limited.
Bronze medalist. 铜牌获得者是来自乌克兰的运动员 Alexander Joshkovuk and Lydia Kovasha from Ukraine.
Ukrainians, that's an excellent performance from the Ukrainians. A high-risk strategy from the Ukrainians really catapulted them up the leaderboard in round 5 when they picked up a 91.2 score. Joshkovas and Kvasha, from nowhere, they've made it a place on the podium. Final score of 425.67 points from their 6 dives. The Chinese, they've already won gold once today, but not here on the 3-meter springboard. And I think the lack of smiles says a lot. Cao Yan and Lin Yu. They needed a 92 score on their last dive to take victory. Sorry, 96 score. They got 90.6. So failed to add to their gold and earlier on. But silver medal in the men's 3-meter synchro for Cao Yan and Yulin. But gold. And an outstanding performance.
And Leah Zakharov from Russia.
Really was a very, very good performance from the Russians, Kuznetsov and Zakharov. They took plenty of risks there. Dive difficulty quotient 3.8 in the last round, 3.5, 3.6, 3.4. It was a high-risk strategy that paid off, and they've won gold in China's own backyard of the water cube.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of Russian Federation. 女士们、先生们，请起立，奏俄罗斯国歌。Ladies and gentlemen,
Evgeny Kuznetsov and Ilya Zakharov, gold medalists in the men's 3-meter synchro springboard event at this, the FINA MVC Diving World Series 24 in Beijing. Photo opportunity for the men from Russia and Ukraine, and also the Chinese silver medalists. That's a terrific start to the day for Kuznetsov and Zakharov. We've got the individual 3-meter springboard for men and women on Saturday.